overall U.S. consumer sentiment. I think what he did not necessarily grapple with is the reaction from Canada that we've seen domestically in their politics. And with their rise now of the Liberal Party, basically saving them.
Completely saving them.
Reigniting like this Canadian nationalism, which I didn't even know existed. I thought they all hated each other anyway, and they're divided over language. But they really have come together. You got to give it to them, you know? In a way, you do need like an external threat force to really make yourself, your country, come together for your national identity. But the problem that I actually think is whenever we're igniting that Canadian identity and bringing them together, their capacity to suffer as opposed to the American consumer is probably much higher because they feel like they're sticking it to the man.
Well,
whereas Americans are like, I don't know about this. Like,
right.
And we're a way more consumerist society too.
Well, not only that, but as we were discussing before, like for the Canadians, they would know exactly what they're fighting for, like to keep their country. For us, be like, what? Why are we even doing this? Like, what is going on? They don't even, like, there's a tiny, minuscule amount of fentanyl coming across the border, which is the line that we've been sold about why we have to do all of this.
Well, it's the legal pretext, yeah.
Yeah, that's the legal pretext, but they talk about it. That's what they're trying to sell is like, oh, this is why we need to do it. You had, Peter Navarro talking about how the Mexican cartels had taken over Canada. So there's not any clear reason why Americans would want to wage this war, economic or otherwise. But for Canadians, like the stakes are very clear and they're very high. So listen, I don't know what the hell is going on in Trump's head. I do think that part of it is, like you said, Sagar, like Trudeau is he's sort of like the Obama of Canada, you know, and came
quite literally.
Right, and came in opposite during the Obama era and all of that and positioned himself in a very similar way in terms of this sort of like, you know, high IQ, liberal, internationalist approach. And I think Trump he just hates all those people. He just hates them. And it's partly this chip on his shoulder that Trump has about how they look down on him and all of this sort of stuff. I do think that plays into it. But I also think partly maybe as a result of that, you can't just dismiss the things that he has himself said about wanting to use an economic war to annex Canada as the 51st state. And maybe that's like the opening negotiating position, but I thought it's very revealing here that, you know, he has recognized like, oh, all these treaties and stuff that set the border, I'm just not gonna agree with those and I just don't accept them. And I'm gonna see about annexing this area just north of the Great Lakes. I'm gonna see what I can get away with. I think we have to take him seriously at that. And, you know, you talk about things that are politically unpopular, like the U.S. expanding into Canada is not something that anyone voted for. And it's wildly politically unpopular, as is acquiring Greenland. Probably the most popular of his, like, you know, territorial conquest things is the Panama Canal, which he's already, like, sold off to BlackRock. So,
he didn't sell it off to BlackRock. The Chinese sold it to BlackRock.
Okay.
And they probably shouldn't have owned it in the first place, if we're all being honest.
But we know why that transaction ultimately happened.
But why is that so bad? This is where I get annoyed. It's like, by the way, he tweeted today that Greenland will have the right of self-determination. So Greenlanders, there's only 50,000 of you. I have a modest proposal. We'll give you $1 million each. All you have to do is come over here. The Danes have treated you like shit. You will be embraced greatly by the American empire. And we protect you anyway, so you might as well sign up. On Canada, I don't know. Again, I have mixed feelings. These Canadians, they drive me crazy. The way that they, just their chauvinism, when clearly we are the only reason that they get to exist and breathe, is a little bit annoying, considering how much of our defense posture goes to their benefit. However, I can sympathize with being a power that is up there, that is like, hey, hold on a second, I thought we were great neighbors and all that, and you're trying to change that contract. So broadly, I think that their ignition of nationalism is more interesting, especially because it hasn't really existed for a long time. Like, they haven't had a reason to be together. Like I said, I mean, they all hate each other anyway, whether they speak French and English, one of the dumbest countries on the planet, whatever. But my point is just that for them, they have been able, both the conservative and the liberal party, to have extraordinary political benefit of standing up to Trump, which I just generally think is worse, especially if we're trying to get a better and more favorable deal on economic terms. But I mean, the truth of the matter is our trade deficit with Canada is unbelievable. And they have been a huge beneficiary, both of NAFTA. Their own quality of life has rate not only stable, but it's actually broadly increased to the extent that it's had a problem since NAFTA. It's their own fault because of mass immigration, of which they're having their own fights over in their own country right now. Something that even Justin Trudeau admitted, and part of the reason that he's so unpopular. So him getting kicked out is an interesting moment. And actually, if we see the rise of kind of the leaders in Canada, both left and right, they're having to fuse this new Canadian nationalism fight with kind of like who and what they stand for, which is broadly better for them. I kind of wish we had the same thing over here. I'm almost jealous, to be honest, of their awakening.
Yeah, so let's get to the Canadian politics here. Trudeau stepped down as Liberal Party leader because he was profoundly unpopular. And so the Liberal Party had their leadership elections. We can put this up on the screen. They chose a guy named Mark Carney. He is the former governor of both the Bank of England, actually during Brexit, and also the Bank of Canada. I mean, my sense of him, I've known about this guy for like 2 days, is that he's sort of just like a liberal technocrat kind of a guy. In terms of the Liberal Party, tends towards the more sort of fiscal conservative, as did his primary rival, Chrystia Freeland. So in any case, they've chosen this just sort of like steady hand who has a deep understanding, obviously, of the global financial system, given his previous positions, banker, who will now face the conservative leader, a guy by the name of Pierre Poilievre. That's how I'm going. That's the French pronunciation. I think he says Poilievre, I think is the way that
I'm going to call him Mr. Pierre. That's what we're going with.
Poilievre is the French version. But in any case, he was looking, I mean, this dude Pierre, he looked like he was a shoo-in. And if you put up the chart that we have, what is that, C4B, that shows the polling and the way that Trump's tariff war has just like completely rescued the Liberals from what was previously certain defeat. And you can see the red line there, like they were in the toilet. I mean, we covered this. When Trudeau resigned, you can see the line there. It was at an absolute low. But the combination, I'm sure having a new leader helps, but really it's the Trump economic warfare that has rescued the Liberal Party's hopes here. Now, there's still not a shoo-in. If you put the one before this up on the screen, you can see C4 that the Conservatives still have an edge in terms of the what the polling shows. But before, Liberals were absolutely toast. It says they're still up in the polls. The Conservatives are, with the latest averages suggesting 40% of voters back them. The Liberals' fortunes, meanwhile, have been revived. Their support has climbed to slightly over 30%, up 10 points from January. The new dude, Mark Carney, can call elections kind of, I guess, whenever he really wants. It has to be in the relative near term, but he can call elections whenever. He should call them for like April 2nd, when the new tariffs are being put into place to maximize his chances of success here. Let's just get a taste of C3, guys. Let's just go ahead and get a taste of Mark Carney and the way that he is talking about the political situation, obviously, who puts Trump here front and center.
There's someone who's trying to do the opposite. There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. The Canadian government has rightly retaliated and is rightly retaliating with our own tariffs that will have maximum impact in the United States and minimum impact here in Canada. And my government will keep our tariffs on until the Americans show us respect.
And he ran on taking an aggressive posture towards Trump. He wants to put into place dollar-for-dollar retaliatory tariffs that would hit the U.S. hard and, sort of minimize the impact for Canada. I know there's been a lot of talk of targeting red states in particular, going after Donald Trump's support base. And so, the fact that that's what people were looking for is also really noteworthy. Apparently, Pierre Poilievre, who previously had really sort of compared himself to Trump and had gone viral in the American right, et cetera, era. Now he is really trying to distance himself from Trump and said he is, quote, not MAGA.
Yeah,
so you can see the way the fault lines have drawn and the way that what was previously a neutral or a benefit for the conservatives has now turned into being totally toxic.
Canada was ripe for a MAGA-style takeover. They had the same problem. Trudeau had to resign for a reason. He was massively unpopular. They have huge problems with mass immigration that Trudeau even admitted. They have same economic stagnation. They have very similar trends. We are cousins, in a way. And so our problems definitely rhyme. But now with this reignition of Canadian